All right, welcome everybody. My name is John Lux and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Welcome to our virtual town hall, Film Festivals in the COVID-19 era. Just as a disclaimer, as a reminder, we are recording the session and the plan is to publish the discussion early next week for those that missed the town hall. So we'll put that on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, and people that weren't able to make it will be able to check it out. For those that aren't familiar with Film Florida, the organization is a not-for-profit association run by volunteer members of the industry that represent all sectors of the film, television, production, and digital media tech industry throughout Florida. We're funded entirely by our members, and those members include industry professionals and companies, local film commissions, colleges and universities, as well as their students, other associations, unions, tourism entities, and essentially anyone that supports our industry. Our members come from Pensacola to Key West and everywhere in between, so we truly represent all aspects of the industry throughout the entire state of Florida. Our functions primarily include marketing, professional development and education, networking, and advocating. As I continue to remind people in our town halls, just for clarification, we are not part of the State Film Office. That's the Florida Office of Film and Entertainment, and they're part of the state government as opposed to our independent status as a not-for-profit. We're completely independent of them, and we're not tied to the State Film Office in any other way other than we have a great working relationship with them, and we all have the same goals of growing and strengthen our industry. Before we get going, I want to thank our immediate past president, Bonnie King, and our new president, Gail Morgan, for giving us the blessing to take on this town hall. I want to thank our panelists who are giving up their time on a Thursday night, and I want to thank our members for their support. Without the support of our members, we don't exist, so we want to thank all of them. Us members, I want to thank Film Florida member Gerardo Lopez, who once again is providing technical support for our town hall. And of course, I want to thank all of you in the audience for joining us today. Panelists, just a reminder, if you can mute yourself unless you're talking so we can avoid as much background noise as possible. For those in the audience, please use the question and answer function here in Zoom. We'll be collecting those questions throughout the night and address them with our panelists as time allows. When you submit a question though, if your question is for someone specific, please make sure you let us know that. And also type your question in full sentences, because we're gonna need to know what exactly you're referencing, since we're gonna be answering questions later on, as opposed to the specific subject that you may be asking about. So we have a great number of panelists with us tonight, and I wanna let them introduce themselves. So Jay, why don't you go first?
Sure, thanks for having me. My name is Jay Laplante. I'm the director of Miami Film Festival.
Michelle, unmute yourself.
Already technical difficulties. Hey everyone, Michelle Hillary. I am the Deputy Film Commissioner for the Palm Beach County Film and Television Commission and a past president of this wonderful organization. I also am the executive producer of the Palm Beach's Student Showcase of Films.
Tim, you're up next.
Tim Anderson. I am the programming coordinator for the Florida Film Festival in Orlando.
Tony?
I am Tony Armour, St. Petersburg Clearwater Film Commissioner and the founder of the Sunscreen Film Festival in St. Petersburg.
Ashley, it's good to see you. Why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Ashley Nelson, and I'm the festival producer at Orlando International Film Festival.
Nina, joining us all the way from New York City.
I'm Nina Strike, and I'm the executive director of the Global Peace Film Festival.
Greg?
Hi, I'm Gregory Von Hausch. I'm the president and CEO of the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival.
And last, but of course not least, Jen.
Hey, John. Hey, everybody. Jen Vargas. I'm the host, programmer, and everything else behind the Film Slam.
Thank you very much, everybody. So let's jump right in. Jay, I want to start with you because the Miami Film Festival was in March. And you had to end your film festival early because of COVID-19 and everything that happened in March. Talk a little bit about what was going on that time, take us back to mid-March and talk about how that decision came to be to shut down midstream.
Yeah, so the festival opened on March 6th. I can't remember exactly, but we were on the red carpet for our opening night, and we're waiting for our guests to arrive, and I looked down at my phone It was about 6 o'clock, and I got an email from Variety saying that South by Southwest had just canceled, you know, like the event, like that day, like on our red carpet that night. So I was like, wow, this is really happening a lot faster than we thought it would. But, you know, we had launched, so we decided to, you know, proceed with our event and just, you know, follow the directions of our state and county officials in terms of what to do. So the first weekend went really great, but by Monday, day 4, we were starting to notice that there was less people in the auditoriums than there were, you know, that tickets sold. So we're starting to get a little bit concerned. But since, you know, the event was already launched, we're just hoping that we'd be able to finish. But again, every day checking in with our you know, our leadership at Miami-Dade College, which hosts the event. And on Thursday morning, the decision was made that we had to end early. So, so we just simply, you know, made that announcement, contacted, you know, we went into kind of emergency mode just to, you know, get a hold of all our filmmakers, get a hold of all our ticket buyers to let them know that, you know, that we wouldn't be able to continue. Then we, you know, our first priority was just to refund everyone who had bought a ticket, you know, because we thought that was extremely important to be fair. You know, we weren't able to, you know, provide those screenings. So we did that and get all our filmmakers home. We had about, I think 40 or 45 filmmakers from other countries here at that moment, you know, to get them all home. It was also getting a little scary because that was when I think Trump had announced the night before that, you know, all flights from Europe were into the United States were like shut off. So all our European guests were really scared, and we got them all out and got them home. The only good part was that we were able to have screened about 80% of the official selection, even in the first 6 days. So what we've been doing since the festival closed is trying to take care of those other 20, you know, it was actually exactly 20 films that didn't get to screen. So we've been doing kind of, you know, each film is different, but we've been doing some virtual premieres. We've also been doing some virtual encores. We're still continuing to work our way through that list of films that didn't screen and trying to take care of them all. But you know, our juries had just about completed their process when we had to cancel. So you know, we got all our jurors home. Some of them lived as far away as Uruguay and Georgia in East Europe. But we got them all links for the films they hadn't seen, and then they were able to deliberate by Zoom. We did finally announce awards in all our categories by I think like a week later or 10 days later. So we think of it as a truncated edition. You know, it wasn't a canceled edition. It just wasn't as complete as you know it was intended to be. But for the most part, we were able to deliver the 37th edition of Miami Film Festival. And now we have, you know, we've had all these extra months to kind of learn and see what's going to happen for the future without that immediate pressure of an event to produce. So it's really interesting timing for us.
Yeah.
As you know, it's this whole thing is interesting for everybody, no matter what your schedule is. But
well, and I think as we'll continue to talk, we kind of run the gamut in this panel of those that, you know, were midstream or planning and you know, canceling or haven't been affected quite yet. So Michelle, I want to jump over to you. Just a few weeks after what would, you know, the end of the Miami Film Festival would have been the Palm Beach Student Showcase of Films. And it's not a traditional film festival in the normal sense, but we included you in this group because it is an in-person event similar to a film festival, and it attracts people from all over the state to promote and honor student filmmakers. But the Student Showcase of Films is one day. And so talk about the decision to cancel your event. And I remember thinking when you guys canceled that you did it really fast. What went into your decision there?
Well, thank you for including me. It is a little different from a traditional film festival, but in a sense where we do actually come out for our call for entries in October, and it's run as a year-long festival. All of the, as a competition, it's judged by professionals around the world. We had over 40 judges from around the world looking at these films that came in from students from all over the state of Florida. We were supposed to be celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And so the planning was even bigger than probably any year before. So we had the banners purchased and the specialty 25th anniversary items purchased. We had the special cover for our program. We were starting to see that we were having some difficulty lining up our presenters and our celebrities this year because things started circulating. There started to be some concerns about travel, etc. So we were already starting to see that kind of early. But because this was our 25th anniversary, we went all the way until about 3 weeks out before the event, before we ended up canceling. The event takes place on Lynn University, which is an international university campus. So, you know, we knew that we were kind of looking at what the school district was doing because we do have over 800 students from around the state of Florida, a lot of them right here from Palm Beach County and South Florida as well. So we were looking at what the school district was doing, certainly what the Lynn University was doing, if they were going to be shutting down their campus. So much of this was really relying upon decisions of other people as well. And we wanted our students, of course, to be safe during this. And we knew that we weren't the ones ultimately to make the final call, that this was something that was going to come from the higher ups, being the school district. So yeah, we finally pulled the plug 3 weeks out, and it was a really hard decision. It was something that, you know, if you would have said a month beforehand or even 2 months beforehand, what do you think about the possibility? And I would have been like, there's no way that this is going to be canceled. Of course this is going to happen. And so it was something that it was a tough decision to make. And we ended up, I don't know if you want to get into, or if now or later, about what we ultimately did in lieu of having the live red carpet awards ceremony at Lynn University. So we did things a lot different this year than what we typically do.
Go ahead and tell us the story about what you guys eventually did.
Sure. So we, you know, to think about postponing this, because I'm sure a lot of events, you know, looked at the possibilities of postponing. For us, that was very difficult because, again, we're talking about our students. You know, this is the largest statewide film competition for high school and college students. So we had a few things against us. And as you can imagine, because the majority of our audience are student filmmakers. So we have summer coming, we had school shut down, of course, the summer months, and then, you know, all of a sudden you're back in the new school year, and we come out for our call for entries. So for us, it really wasn't an option to postpone because we didn't know how long this was going to last. I don't think any of us would have imagined that we would be here today. We thought, you know, I think we were told, go home for 2 weeks and then we're all going to come back and everything's going to be back to normal. Well, that didn't happen. So for us, it was, we had to still go through the motions of we knew who our winners were, we knew who our finalists were, and so we did a virtual Facebook watch party where we announced the winners and finalists on Facebook. And that worked out very well for us. You know, we've given over $1.6 million in scholarships and awards over the years that we've been doing this. And so we still announced our finalists and winners. We still ordered the trophies. We still sent the checks out. And then even as a follow-up to that, we asked our winners and finalists to send us in their acceptance speeches. And so we did a second Facebook watch party where we did a video with our winners and their acceptance speeches. So while it wasn't traditional, we improvised and made something that we're still very proud of.
Excellent. Hey, Tim, I want to jump over to you at the Florida Film Festival. You guys guys were originally scheduled for April. Talk about the postponement and then the discussions on whether or not to reschedule or just scrap 2020 and say, let's look forward to 2021.
Yeah. Obviously, when South by dropped, we were freaked out a lot. And so we were about, South by happens about 6 weeks before we do. And we basically were just sitting there and watching the festivals fall one by one and having this discussion every day about what the plan was going to be and what was going to go down. And it kind of came down to a couple of things. Sorry if I feel like I've never actually talked about this yet, so I feel like I'm like, ooh, this is all new. A friend of mine is a really good programmer for Tribeca. We actually had an incredible number of films that were world premiering at Tribeca the day before they were going to have their second screening with us. Just something kind of happened this year, and so there was a lot of schedule conflict. So I was on the phone with her a lot, trying to find out what Tribeca was going to do, because we kind of knew if Tribeca fell, we were dead in the water, because we were going to lose all of those movies anyway, and it was going to be a pretty decent chunk of competition films. But yeah, for sure, the longer we went on, the more it felt like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Like we were going in every day talking about a plan for, this event or that event, and we were sort of sitting in the corner going, there's just pretty much no way we're having this film festival. So I don't know exactly if I could tell you what the exact day was that we made the final decision on it, but we had pretty much chalked it up to absolutely 100%. And within the next 24 to 48 hours, my friend at Tribeca texted me and said, tomorrow we're announcing that we're done. And so basically what we did is, as soon as we decided it, we knew we had a game plan for when we were going to tell everybody we did it. But the primary focus ahead of that was for us to contract. We had 193 selections at the time. Wow. Was to contact every single one of those filmmakers and tell them what was going on, and then basically gag order them until we publicly announced it. So they had about a 3-day notice. And then we had to let our staff know, and we let our sponsors know, and we kind of tried to gag order everybody. And it got out maybe about 6 hours ahead of the official release on Facebook. Somebody had posted it to somebody who posted it to somebody, and you know how Facebook works. Yeah. So,
and did you know at that time that you guys wanted to reschedule as opposed to just cancel, or did you at first was it an unknown?
It was an unknown. Basically, what we talked about, what Matthew Curtis, program director, and I talked about was because we're accredited for the Oscars in animation, live action, and documentary. We had basically, our first goal was to get our juries to agree to watch everything if we canceled outright, and to award the grand jury award. And then I talked to the awards office at the Academy if that was acceptable to qualify the films. Okay. So that was sort of the original plan, was, okay, if we can't reschedule at all, we want to qualify these filmmakers because they deserve that. And that's what South by ended up doing as well. And I imagine a few other festivals did it also. But the decision to reschedule came later. And it's an incredibly large number of factors involved in it, which are way too boring for any normal person to understand. But I'm sure you guys who run festivals can imagine how they went. But we knew we had a window. We knew what that window was. It was about a 2-week window in August. And we knew if we could do it at that point, we wanted to the films on the screen the way they deserve to be seen. And, have that bit of a celebration of film. And I'll talk more about the logistics of that when we talk about rescheduling, because there's some reasons why we officially picked rescheduling that are probably more understood in that context. Excellent. But it was not like we had no idea what we were doing the day we basically said, yeah, we have no clue. We're done.
Makes sense. Tony, I want to jump over to you at Sunscreen. You guys were scheduled for the end of April, so just a couple of weeks after the Florida Film Festival, and you also have since postponed and now rescheduled, which we'll talk about. But if I remember correctly, you canceled relatively early. Did you guys, just make that call really fast, thinking, you could see the writing on the wall, or was there something about that made you just jump in so quickly?
No, I feel like we held on as long as we could. It's like you're hanging onto the back of the car, just trying not to give up. And then eventually you're like, this is just not going to work. And so the decision was made not to outright cancel, but just postpone. And so, contacted the filmmakers just like Florida Film Festival did, and let everybody know, hey, we're going to postpone. We don't know when we're postponing for. And we thought, oh, maybe June, or maybe, end of May would be fine at, another month or so. Not knowing that it was going to get pushed farther and farther and farther down. And then since AMC Theaters in downtown St. Pete is the main venue, when AMC closed, that's kind of like, well, we can't do anything until AMC decides to open back up. And so, now we've picked September 24th to the 27th, and been in communication with AMC, and they announced today, I knew a few days ago, that they were postponing again because Tenet is not going to be released when it is. And so they actually did a really interesting thing in that they've given the festival more screens than originally had programmed, so that you can spread more people out in the theater. So that was cool. But it's just, will they be open at the end of September? And so who knows? So it's still kind of, everything's done, everything's set, schedule's written, like literally everything is ready to go. The switch is ready to flip to make it happen. So it actually made it easy to postpone because everything was kind of turnkey. So that once you know the new dates, it's sort of turnkey again. You just crank it up and go. But we'll see.
Yeah. And Jen, I want to bring you in here, even though we actually could bring you in just about anywhere in this, because Film Slam is in Orlando, and you do the event periodically throughout the year, not just a single time. So talk about what the last 4 or 5 months have been for you and the planning that you've had to deal with.
Oh, how much time do you have, John?
couple minutes.
Well, Film Slam we're an almost 16-year-old event for independent filmmakers, and we run every month, 10 months out of the year. Hopefully going in 2021, who knows? We may go 12 months out of the year eventually, but yeah, we're every month, and we've had to cancel the last 4, now 5, unfortunately. Spoiler alert. And we were about to announce March's lineup when the county said, "Hey, stay home," and the filmmakers were disappointed. I was disappointed. I wanted to do everything I could to socially distance. I bought a big thing of hand sanitizer when you could still find it, and just that anybody who was comfortable could attend. And then Orlando Museum of Art closed, which is our new venue. We had to unexpectedly change venues last year, which ended up being great because Orlando Museum of Art has been wonderful. However, their board decided to not hold large gatherings for a while. So that kind of left us in a question mark kind of place. I'm in regular contact with OMA, and they have been wonderful to us and very welcoming. And our filmmakers, the main thing with Film Slam is we're not just an event and a monthly event, we're a community. And it's been built over 15 years, and a lot of filmmakers from Pensacola to the Keys submit. And we've been very fortunate to where we've not had any lapse of submissions, only we can't really screen them right now the way that we would want to screen them, because a large component in our community is also that face-to-face creative networking component. And that's been a challenge. I've got a few irons in the fire with that, but it's our main focus is our filmmakers and our audience. We don't exist. We are 100% indie. 100% of our ticket sales go back to our rental fee because, that's where it goes right now. We don't make any money. I don't make any money. So it's it's been a challenge trying to balance life and everything, and try to balance Film Slam and still pay enough respect to the filmmakers that work on their films. So we're kind of a question mark right now.
Yeah. Ashley, I want to jump over to you at the Orlando International Film Festival. You guys were scheduled for your inaugural film festival in late May. And you were in that interesting window where the initial stay-at-home orders were set to expire at the end of April. And so you were about a month before the event. what went into the decision to postpone for you guys? Or did you give any thought to saying, okay, well, the stay-at-home order is going to be lifted and maybe we can, fit in there? What were you guys thinking?
So we waited as long as we could in March to figure out, could this work? Could this not work? And then it actually ended up being decided for us because the Orange County Convention Center ended up being a testing facility. So at that point, we decided, okay, we have to cancel it at least at that venue. So we went into discussions. Are we going to fully cancel? Are we going to postpone? Are we just going to push to 2021? And I came up with, I was like, I want to do this festival. Let's figure this out. And then it went to, can we get a venue? And then how long should we wait past like the stay-at-home orders to be lifted? And that was an interesting way because it was all through April. It was like, is this going to be safe even when they lift at this point? And then at the beginning of May, it was like, is it still going to be safe? Is it not? So we ran into those roadblocks of when will it actually be a good time? Unfortunately, it's like, it was a balancing act where we was like, okay, we need to pick a date, let's do it, and let's take the safety precautions. And we picked September to try to get ahead of everything.
And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the planning now going forward. But I want to jump over to our last two panelists who are still in a holding pattern because they have always been scheduled for the fall. Nina, I want to go to you first. The Global Peace Film Festival is scheduled for late September. So where do things stand right now?
Well, we are going in late September, but we're going to be mostly virtual. We're going to do what we can in town, which is possibly a couple of outdoor screenings, possibly a drive-in, all working with, with people. We use a lot of non-traditional venues, many of which are not available to us because they, or if they would be open to public events, it would be there wouldn't be enough people to be able to make it viable to use them. So we decided early on that we were going to go virtual. We started actually we had a screening, we had a world premiere of a film from the Bertelsmann Foundation scheduled for March 20th that we had to cancel. And we decided to cancel really early because it started to look like flights were being canceled and we couldn't get the filmmakers. It was like, are we going to be able to, is this going to be canceled? Shall we cancel now? So we canceled quickly and have been working with them, did the premiere virtually, started doing a series of created a new program of virtual conversations with filmmakers that we do from Zoom to Facebook Live as a way to sort of gear up for the virtual festival. We also wanted to provide some content for people to watch for free that we've, from filmmakers from previous festivals to sort of keep the momentum going. So we've selected our platform. We have the film, we've selected the films that we want to program, but instead of just sending out an acceptance email to filmmakers, every single one has to be a specific conversation because, they submitted to a festival that was going to be live, and it's a different world now. So we're kind of excited about the virtual festival. We're used to adversity. Being in September, we're in, because we anchor around the International Day of Peace, which is September 21st. So in both 2017 and 2019, we were sort of hit by hurricanes, which required a lot quicker scrambling than this does. So, but we're excited about what's coming, and we're going to continue the virtual programming that we started doing. And it opens up a lot of, while some doors may close, it opens up a lot of doors.
Now, you had mentioned having to reschedule for hurricanes, and you said that hurricanes.
They interfered with what we did. It was, Irma was 1 week before our festival. It was not possible to cancel at that point, and it was not, actually the audience that year was very excited to come out to something because people had been in for about a week and, sort of dealing with hurricane, and then all of a sudden they could come to an air-conditioned theater. A lot of our staff didn't have electricity back by then, so they didn't mind coming to work.
Yeah, yeah. And Greg, I want to jump down to you to kind of wrap up the calendar year in terms of when these things were all scheduled. You guys are scheduled for November. So, I mean, when all this first happened in, March, April, it seemed like November was a really long time away. And now it seems like it's right around the corner. So how are things looking for you guys?
Yeah, we were told it was going to miraculously disappear. So we all thought, of course, November looks pretty good. We also do festivals in the Bahamas, which is scheduled for August. So that's out the window. Even if we could do it in August, we're not allowed to go there because
right.
So by this time, I usually have about 60% of my catalog done. I've invited all of my guests, and I know who's coming and who we're going to honor. But just like going to Publix is all different now, throw all this out the window. Who knows what's going to happen? So I've been screening films probably more than usual. I've done everything except for our film Freeway, which our final deadline isn't until August. But in my conversations with the filmmakers of the films we've already selected, we've had to give them the caveat of, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're planning that it's going to go forward as scheduled, but it's completely up in the air. We have 2 year-round cinemas. We closed down March 16th, and then in the middle of June, we thought that things were getting better, or so we were told. So we opened back up and then reclosed on July 3rd, just because it really seemed ridiculous for us to be open. We took all the precautions, we had everything was done right. We weren't really getting huge crowds anyway because everybody was scared to shit about what was going to happen. So I didn't want to take the risk for my staff. And also I thought it looked a little weird for us to be open when we could see the numbers were escalating. So that also put a damp on my staff, because some of the staff are 1099s, and we try to keep them going all year round so they're up to speed with the festival. But shutting that down, even though we had the PPP and the EIDL loans, it still put a hardship on us, and I'm sure everybody on screen here. So we're looking to do, we're going to do the festival one way or another. I'm acting like we're going to do it as normal because I have to be prepared for that. But in my heart of hearts, I know that's probably not going to come to pass. So we'll have our virtual, our drive-ins, our boat-ins, and all of the other ancillary things that we do normally. But it is our 35th year. We were hoping for something kind of bigger, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But we're excited about the films we've selected, and we still have to go till August 1st for our deadline. So time will tell.
Great. Tim, let's go back to you. We alluded to the fact that you guys have rescheduled. So tell us about the plans, because they're kind of right around the corner.
Yeah, they're 2 around the corner. So the decision that was ultimately made is we kind of like looked at all the numbers. We looked at all the badges that were already sold. We looked at the key component to doing it was that NZN Theater, our home venue, is our home base. And it's a unique theater if you've never been in it. It's about 7,000 square feet, the internal space of the theater. It only seats 200. but we have it seated at 100 right now. So in terms of the per capita, you know, for at least for your space to per human body ratio is very, very broad. So I guess our first thing we talked about was like, if we do it, we don't want to go to Regal. We usually have 2 screenings at Regal. That was probably prescient, since Regal, like AMC, Tony mentioned, is probably like doesn't know when they're reopening either. So we looked at the dates and we figured we've got to launch the next festival in September, and we have to deal with a Jewish film festival that we put on, and a South Asian film festival we put on, and a student showcase that we put on. So the last possible day we can do this is going to be sometime around the 7th to the 14th of August. So once we figured out that that was a game plan, and again, the numbers were looking much, much better in the end of May when we started having a lot of these discussions about it. So we contacted all the filmmakers. We said, you know, if we do this, are you in? We got about 90% yes, we are totally in. Of course, a lot of them were still planning to attend. That's not going to happen. Almost no one is coming. So there's going to be a lot of Zoom. I'm learning Zoom very well right now. We're also going to be a hybrid festival. So the entire festival is going to now take place over 14 days. It's all going to take place at the Enzian Theater. Every movie is only going to screen 1 time. And so we had to rebuild our schedules completely from scratch to go from 3 venues to 1. We looked at the films that we lost due to distribution deals that went into place, films that got VOD releases over the summer, films that got bought by Netflix that pulled all their movies out of every single festival in the world, whether they were in your festival before Netflix bought it or not. We're also going to have a virtual festival. So we'll be on Eventive. We're going to have over 150 of our selections available on Eventive as a supplement to all the people that couldn't go. But right now we're going to only seat about 100 people, which pretty much is almost entirely made up of people who bought a badge to the festival in last year, before, you know, we even got anywhere near program announcement. So that's sort of the structure of it. We're going to have a total of 177 movies, down from the 193. It's all going to play 1 time. They're still got juries are all watching everything virtually. I'm hoping to do. I've been watching a lot of Friends programming that have been using Eventive over the last couple of months for their festivals, and gauging the best way to do like shorts filmmaker Q&As in a group, and then just maybe recording all of that pre-festival and uploading everything to the internet right after the films play. We're going to have filmmakers Skype in for their feature documentaries, feature narratives. And we are still having a celebrity event. If you guys are really big drive-in movie buffs, Joe Bob Briggs he's a big Texas dude. He's 6'5". He's not scared of COVID. So he decided he was coming to Orlando anyway, to do a live event as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. So it's going to be the festival. It's going to look nothing like the festival has ever looked before. And we're a little terrified about it. And I'm still building digital ballots because we don't want to hand out paper to anybody. You know, I'm still building the Eventive site. And I'm trying to manage now 177 filmmakers, and yeah, we open in like 20 days or something like that. So,
Tony, let's talk about the rescheduling of Sunscreen. How's the planning going, and what is going to be different for you guys?
Yeah, hopefully my dog stopped barking. That's why I keep looking at the screen to see if I can get the girlfriend to get the dog to stop barking right now. Yeah, so, you know, film-wise, we really haven't lost that many films. You know, Sunscreen really concentrates on a lot of really truly independent filmmakers, and doesn't program a lot of films that might be playing at Sundance or Tribeca or a few others, even though the open night film is a film from Sundance this year. So a lot of the films are still going to be in place. Again, really it depends on AMC. If AMC is open, you know, the nice thing is that, you know, AMC is taking their safety plan very seriously, and, you know, what they're going to do. And so, you know, they have sort of that aspect handled. You know, no printed programs this year. All ticketing is going to be digital. The additional screens that I talked about, so that we can spread out those screenings, because they're only going to be at 50% capacity anyways. So just kind of, doing what you can. And if it's me and 3 other people that show up this year, well, then that's what it is.
And Ashley, we talked about the Orlando International Film Festival rescheduling as well. You're a little bit further into September, I believe. What are your dates again, and what's the plan look like?
So we have September 17th, 18th, 24th, and 25th, and that's the in-person section. So back in March, when we were deciding if we wanted to continue this year, it was very much, okay, well, we're going to have it virtual, but do we want an in-person? And we decided yes, but we would very much limit the in-person. So we only picked 4 days. We're limiting to like 1 theater. I think only 75 people can get in. So we really scaled back on that aspect, especially since we originally had like the Orange County Convention Center. So that's been a huge change from predicting of how many people are going to actually show up to now we're looking at how many people are going to show up virtually, how many people are going to buy this pass. So the actual virtual is going to go through Vimeo, and we're going to set up like a channel, and the scheduling will be like the same blocks we would have done in person. They will just be on the Vimeo site.
And as we talked about, this is your first film festival as the Orlando International Film Festival. I mean, it's hard enough to put on a film festival normally, then have to deal with postponing it, and then add on top of it is your very first one. So talk about some of those challenges.
So there's been a lot of different roadblocks. I first got into this in January, so I was already late to the game. And then from there, it was just like one curveball after another. And changing from the in-person to a virtual was very different, because at that point we were already trying to pick food options at the Orange County Convention Center. Like, we were so far ahead, and then all of a sudden it was like, what do we do? And that just completely like threw me. Like in March, we're all sitting there like, okay, and we're watching each major festival go, and we're thinking, this is our first year. We have to like figure out a way to continue, but still not put anyone in danger. And that's how we just landed. We're gonna limit. We're gonna follow the protocols going in to keep everyone safe. We are going to give out masks when we sell our tickets. For the in-person, we're going to do hand sanitizer. We're going to set up all those stations inside as well. And again, like with Tony, if it's just me and 3 other people, then that's what it's going to be. And that's basically for everyone at this point, because we really don't know.
Michelle, I want to jump back to you as we start talking about, going forward in virtual / hybrids and all of that. Is there anything that, you guys have always been tied to that one day at Lynn University, but now out of necessity, you had to kind of expand that. Is there anything that you learned that maybe you guys will take going forward to have some more virtual experience for the student showcase?
Yeah, that's a great question, because obviously it's a balance between wanting to get your audience there in person and get your numbers. But then you have to take a look at, what you could gain from the whole virtual experience and additional audience members that maybe couldn't be there that you would capture as a result of not being able to be there in person. So, and for us, we have family members and friends of the students, and it's become this, family gathering, actually, where now we're saving seats for not only those student winners, but their family and friends and crew members. So, like I said, our audience only, my theater is 850, and we were standing room only last year. So we have to take those, get those numbers in advance, so we know exactly how many seats we have filled. So, but I do think that the whole virtual experience worked out very well for us. We may do a combination of the two next year. I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't think any of us even know where we're going to be. You know, our event takes place in April, the beginning of April, and I'm already starting to think like, okay, what if this doesn't happen in April of next year? If we have to look at, you know, going virtual again. But either way, I think that we may do a combination, because I like the idea of involving more people in the announcement. But it is, of course, a balance, because you want your audience there. You want people to be there in person and in attendance. So, but I think there's something to the whole virtual thing that we might be able to continue with some sort of a combination.
Greg, going back to you, you brought up the financial side of this a little bit. So I want to dive into that a little bit more. Outside of corporate sponsorship, which is obviously, you know, really important, you know, film festivals make their money through submissions and ticket sales. And I know that that doesn't pay all the bills by any stretch, but, you know, it's a source of income. So if people are uneasy about attending in person, how do you make up for that financially?
Yeah, that's a dilemma, because it's not only are they reluctant maybe to attend, 35% of my audience is probably of the age when you say, hey, you're going to screen it virtually, they just stare blankly back at you, you know? So that's a whole new education process for that to happen. The virtual thing could be a blessing. It could be terrific. I hate to be Debbie Downer. I don't think it's going to be that way, but it could be great. So we've had to think outside the box ourselves, and how to do that. We've started things where, in addition to our virtual cinema, we did a flip home delivery where we sold popcorn, beer, soda, spirits, candy, and delivered it right to people's homes for free. You know, that was also a way for us to get rid of all the inventory that we bought pre-COVID, because we have 2 full bars in our 2 different theaters, and we had all this stock and it was just sitting there, and so we had to make some money.
Yeah, that's great.
Lost a little bit in gasoline, but it kept us in the public eye. In addition to that, I know we're going to talk about our drive-ins that we're doing, and we have some other things like that. But I think we also have to think outside the box with our sponsors, just like we have done with our drive-in. We thought of different ways to engage them, utilizing the big screen and whatnot, what we can do for them, shooting video and B-roll at their place of business and putting it on screen. We found that the virtual thing has been doing okay. It hasn't been a blockbuster by any means, but we did something also called Press to Play, which was free screenings for our members. So it was sort of a membership perk, and that really blossomed in bringing a lot of new membership and keeping our sustaining members going, because there's something there for them, because they couldn't go to the theaters. They had something that was just for them. So that was great. And our thanks go to all those filmmakers that we'd worked with over the years, that we went back and reharvested their films with their permission. And that's something I think we're going to continue to do throughout, even after COVID, if there is an after COVID. And so we've thought of different ways, and it's really, I think, worked out so far. Broward Cultural Division's been a terrific help for us, and all of the arts groups in the county, thinking of how they can help us as well, because all of us represent just a small microcosm of the arts groups in all of our respective counties or regions. And this thing could have a decimating effect on all of the arts, museums, dance groups, theater groups. So it's incumbent on those agencies pick up the slack now, and they have for us locally. Whether or not, as Michelle was saying, it's going to happen again next year, is there going to be that room that they can lift us again, lift all boats? I don't know, but it is a scary time. But I think we've been very successful in engaging our audience, and I'll talk a little bit about that in some of your future questions.
Yeah, great. Jay, I want to jump over to you and ask you a question. We're talking about all these films going virtual, all the festivals, the screenings are virtual. What are the security concerns in terms of piracy and those type of things once we start putting all these films online?
I mean, of course, people are, worried about that. That's why a lot of, that's why I said initially that all the films that we've been trying to take care of since our festival ended, every case is different. There's some people that just don't want to go online. We had a world premiere that was scheduled that night of Thursday that we canceled, and I think they really want to wait. I mean, even if it's a year, they want to wait and have their the world premiere that they were envisioning. For these, because we're learning like everyone else. We started using Vimeo VOD, Vimeo Business. So we haven't had any incidents of any of our films being pirated or any of those issues. But if we had to, like we also have an October event. It's much smaller than the regular festival in March, but it's a festival called Jams, and we are trying to decide what to do. I mean, I don't think we won't. Like last year, we opened with Pain and Glory, and we closed with Parasite. So those are the films that would not, choose Vimeo as a secure option. So we're trying to decide, if we, what our hybrid is going to look like, and exploring Eventive and Cinesend. But yeah, it's a worry for everybody. I mean, basically, someone told me that. Doesn't matter how many protections you put online. If someone really wants to pirate your movie, they're going to be able to do it. Yeah. It's just too many ways that hackers can override all security. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do it, but I understand that there is that problem.
Does anybody else have something they want to add about the security?
Yeah, I can.
Tim, go ahead.
We opted to use Eventive over Vimeo. We actually originally talked about using Vimeo, and we opted actually to use Eventive over Vimeo. It came as a recommendation from my friend Melanie Addington, who runs the Oxford Film Festival in Mississippi. And then when we started to query a few other people about it, we found out that Eventive is actually where A24 and Magnolia are currently hosting their movies for the virtual screenings that they're doing for their stuff for all of the art house theaters. So they use essentially the same encoding program that Netflix uses. Now that's still, Jay is on the money. I mean, if I want to bootleg the movie, I just turn my cell phone on and put it on a thing right in front of the TV, worst case scenario. But I also got a tech team that could probably rip down any movie on earth. So there's no perfect way to do it, but I think that one of the reasons why we felt good about using Eventive was that. But to that statement, even though our spotlight films are major distribution films, there's only 6 this year. We actually are going to be able to show some of those on the system through our virtual, but we did run into a lot of problems with filmmakers, especially the ones that were having world premieres with us for their features and their docs, that are very apprehensive. And so only about half of our competition features and documentaries are going to be on the site. And most of those are ones that did already have their world premiere somewhere else, that have already worked on negotiations and distribution, that have a team behind them that kind of signed off on it. It's definitely a scary place, but there's some short films that won't even go online that we're going to world premiere with us, because they're just, the concern is, once it hits the internet, it's gone. But I do think that there's solutions out there for people that are looking to get movies on a site that are as secure as you could be, which is not that secure really, but
Right. Jen, I want to ask you, oh, Greg, go ahead. You got something to add? You're on mute.
I just want to say that we're also using Eventive, and my director of communications, Heather Gilchrist, is monitoring this, and she thought I was being way too down on the readings. I'm not, Heather. I apologize. It's all, but throw that in there.
Okay, thanks. Jen, all right, so let me jump over to you. We're talking about in-person screenings, and a couple people have, Tony and Ashley have mentioned this. You know, you're obviously going to be driven when you do get back open by your venue. You know, whatever the venue holds is what it holds, and you can only allow, you know, a percentage of that most likely. So at a certain point, is it worth even having in-person screenings if only a couple people are comfortable going, show up? You know, how do you gauge that as you go forward?
Well, the challenge with Film Slam is the screenings are not necessarily what people come to Film Slam for. They come to see the screenings to see works of other filmmakers, but it's mainly the networking component that they are interested in. So having Film Slam may end up evolving after all of this. And in that out of the box thinking, we've got some kooky ideas to try and make that work, because in the end, like we don't have an executive board. We don't have any of the other challenges that typical film festivals have. We're a screening series, but we also deserve a seat at the table. Like independent filmmakers in Florida, especially short filmmakers, they're not going to make any money off of their work. They just do it for the love of it. But you know, there's still possible distribution pipeline, and it might be slim, but right now, who knows? The whole industry may evolve, and there may be a short film streaming service. I mean, Quibi's out there and whatnot. So I don't know. It's I
brought up
obsolete, but there has to be some sort of
right. And you brought up a really great point about the experience of the film festival circuit, and I want to come back to that. We're gonna actually spend a decent amount of time, but before we do that, I want to hit over to Michelle. You know, schools are a hot topic, you know, right now, and you know, it kind of seems like it's changing by the day in terms of what the school year is going to bring. How do you see all of this affecting your student filmmakers' ability to make films?
Well, I'm hoping with all of the time that our students have that we'll have more films that are being entered, but I see it going either way, actually, John. You know, not being in the classroom to begin with, actually, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now is starting the year out here, at least in Palm Beach County, and I know some of our close counties where they're looking at starting out later in the school year. Our start date right now is end of August, and then doing online initially. You know, that certainly, I'm sure, is going to have an impact with the students and the teams and the being able to, their crews going out and being able to produce films. But at the same time, you know, potentially with the more free time that we have, you know, maybe we're going to get additional films that will be submitted. So I see it going really either way. Things are definitely going to change. For us, any film that enters into the Student Showcase Films has to come from a school. But we're seeing it on the, you know, as a film commission, the production side of things, where we still have production going on, but the crews are much smaller than before, and we're doing things much differently. So I see that translating in with our students as well.
Greg, I want to jump back over to you because you alluded to something that I want to go to now. When we were talking about, with all the health experts out there saying being outside is better than being indoors, and you're already doing some outdoor stuff. So talk a little bit about some of those outdoor screenings and, you know, your thoughts on that becoming a little bit more of a permanent fixture through this whole thing.
Yes, we launched our Fliff Drive-In Cinema on Memorial Day weekend. We started off in called Mass District, which is basically a huge parking lot near downtown Fort Lauderdale. It looked huge, but we maxed out at 95 cars. And after 2 weekends there, we opened with Pulp Fiction, which was gangbusters. And the next night, the Terminator, I think it was. And Teen Wolf. And then the next weekend was Terminator and Carrie. And those went really well, but we obviously outgrew our spot. So we contacted Pier 66, which is a big iconic hotel on the water down in Fort Lauderdale. And they're hosting us and have been ever since then. And we do a Friday night general audience thing. Bohemian Rhapsody sing-along. That was really big. This week we have the Grease sing-along, and next week we're doing Hairspray sing-along. And we've added a kids film on the Saturday. We did a Lego movie, and this week it's Happy Feet. And we've done everything we can, telling people, stay in your cars. If you got to get out and go to the food trucks or whatever, you got to wear a mask and get back in your car. You don't have to. And we have food trucks. We have a full bar, which is a great thing to have at a drive-in. It's politically incorrect, but it's there anyway. It's Fort Lickerdale. And so the food trucks, the concessions, popcorn for the kids show, we have cotton candy. And those have been great. And tonight we have a proposal with the Lauderdale Yacht Club to do a boat-in movie starting next month there at the Yacht Club. And so that's been kind of a nightmare, dealing with the Coast Guard, the Marine commissions for each individual municipality, and working with boats that like to be kind of like pirates that just sort of float into your space. But those have been wonderful. And even though we're selling them out, they're not really great revenue generators, because we're working with Criterion and Swank, primarily those two, and they're taking 50% of our gross. Okay. We've got equipment and staffing concerns, so we come out of it. We make money, but it wouldn't be worth it unless we wanted something for the exposure, keeping us relevant, and also community service-wise, to do something for the community. And we think movies is the great escape. So
right.
Great.
I love seeing all the stuff on social media about the drive-ins. Those are great to see. Jay, I want to go back over to you. As Jen alluded to, film festivals, I don't even know what percentage of it is, but networking is key. And so when Film Florida members go to Tribeca and TIFF or Sundance, the priority isn't necessarily seeing the films, it's meeting with people to attract business to Florida and make contacts. So if networking is no longer a major part of the film festival model, how much does that hurt you guys at the Miami Film Festival?
Well, it hurts us a lot. I mean, we've been doing a European Latin American film market with Unifrance for the past 4 years, and this past year we added European film promotion. So if we weren't able to do that, this is like a major aspect of our international personality that would go missing. And when I was saying that the attendance was starting to decline throughout, for this past edition, as we were going further along the week, I was referring to the public. But our happy hours and our seminars, that all the filmmakers were there, were packed. Like they want it so badly. So I mean, it's something that is just very, very disconcerting to think about all of that going away. I mean, I participated in the Cannes virtual market, and I had a lot of these meetings, but I mean, it's just there's something missing, and I don't know if we're just all going to get used to missing it, and this will be our new way of communicating. But there's definitely something lost, and it's hard for me to imagine. That's one of the aspects of the what we do that I enjoy the most. So if that was gone, just be hard.
Yeah, and Tony, I want to talk to you because you wear a lot of different hats. I mean, part film commissioner, part film festival curator, part filmmaker. So
Yeah.
from the filmmaker side, I know you go to a lot of different film festivals. Talk about the loss of the networking aspect from a filmmaker perspective.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that it's going to affect is the ability of filmmakers to collaborate and create projects moving forward. So, one of the things at Sunscreen that people enjoy so much and that I've seen over the 15 years that we've been doing it is the hundreds of projects that are created because filmmakers meet each other, start to talk and collaborate. I got this script, I got this idea, whatever. And next thing you know, the next year they're submitting a film that they came up with, at the festival that particular year. And then, beyond Sunscreen, you go to other festivals, whether it's, Florida Film Festival or Miami or Fort Lauderdale, or you're talking about Cannes or any of the really big ones. That's a major part of those festivals is the business side of it and putting projects together. And I think that's going to suffer a little bit. And, we might see the effects of that a little bit down the road here.
Nina, I want to ask you, Tim, you look like you had something to say. Do you want to jump in there? No, you're good?
I just make weird facial expressions. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to the networking part of things?
Yes, I will.
Go ahead.
Because I'm looking at it now, and we're trying to make it very interactive because we have workshops that we had originally planned. So we're coming up with how do we make it interactive? How can we, that missing component that you talked about, Jay, how can we make that in the virtual setting? And that's been such a struggle because you can't get it. And how moving forward, will it be back? Will it not be back? There's so many unknowns, and that's very frustrating. But if we can do this right, we can make something amazing that really sticks for years.
I think you kind of have to plan on it not coming back. So you have your contingency already done. So if it does come back, then you can kind of alter accordingly. Sorry, Nina.
Never mind.
I was just going to throw in about the, Jay mentioned the Cannes Marche virtual. And I thought it worked great in being able to easily see the films, but it sure lacked the je ne sais quoi of being at the Palais, of running up to the Star, of going back down to the Olympia and visiting all the little restaurants along the way. And I found that I was getting more tired watching them online because I didn't have that running from venue to venue. I'm sorry, Nina, your go.
Nina, come on. You're up for the next question anyway, so add your point.
I was actually going to talk about other ways of engaging audiences and how to engage audiences virtually. And we're looking at a lot of different events as opposed to looking at Q&As, which, as I think it was Tony just said, is just looking at talking heads. How do you bring that to life, and how do you recreate that dynamism that is what is so great about film festivals, is bringing people together and is bringing not only filmmakers at parties together, but also filmmakers with audiences and the dynamism that presents. So we're looking at a lot of different options, and options that will tie in the live events that we do with some of the virtual events. So the live screenings, if we're able to do them, which are primarily going to be outdoors, weather permitting, especially in September. How do you create a virtual event that ties into the screening and the event that is the post-screening activity? So to marry those two. We don't know, we have ideas and we're working on it, but we have no idea if it'll work.
Well, Nina, you've been doing the Global Peace Film Festival for a number of years, but I know big picture, you've been to a lot of different film festivals. is this a weeding out process? I mean, is this one of these things where if you're not creative and you're not trying to figure out the next evolution of the film festival, you're going to be, you know, left behind, and your film festival is going to be weeded out? I mean, is that how you're kind of looking at this a little?
I've thought that, you know, film festivals are constantly weeded out. I mean, over the years, I mean, the average length of this is our 18th. The average duration of, you know, so many of the people with film festivals on this panel have really endured, and that's really fantastic. But the vast majority of them don't last 5 years. So there's a constant weeding out, and I think this is just going to be another weeding out. But as I think it was Tony who said, or Greg who said, that the entire arts community is going to have a seismic weeding out, you know, and that's only one of the many industries that's going to have seismic weeding outs because of, you know, just because of the economy. Right. So, you know, I think everybody has to look really creatively at where, you know, I don't know where our revenue streams are going to come from, because so many of our sponsors are small local sponsors who just don't have money this year. So, so I'm trying to figure out alternatives where the sponsorship can continue, but with an alternative to cash. You know, one of the things, sadly, and somebody, I forget who mentioned, I think it was Greg who mentioned the 1099 people. We, you know, our seasonal employees for the festival, I don't know how many of them will be able to carry, because you know, because we just don't have a place for it if we don't have the events. So there's so many different factors, but I think it's time for us all to be creative and look at, you know, look at where we're going. I had wanted to say earlier, we're using the Eventive platform too, and you know, and Tim is completely right. If anybody wants to steal anything, they just can. I mean, that's, you know, there's no protecting it, but Eventive does have a good digital rights management system. So if any, that's one I recommend. We've been happy with them. We used them for ticketing last year.
So Tim, the one takeaway we got from this is that you're right, that people can still steal everything. Are you happy that that's the takeaway that we're all getting from you?
I mean, you know what? You used to be able in New York City to walk down the street corner and buy a copy of, let's say, Pulp Fiction on VHS the weekend it opened, because the guy in the projection booth set up a video camera next to the projector and filmed the whole movie. I'm not saying that's how I got my copy of Pulp Fiction back in the day. I'm just saying that's how I got my copy of Pulp Fiction back.
Yeah. Well, before you get in any more trouble, let me ask you, you know, while we're on the topic of creating an experience, you know, you're on the clock, you're first up. So how is the Florida Film Festival going to maintain some sort of experience while keeping everybody safe and healthy?
So we're, obviously we're following all the CDC guidelines, but because NZN's been open for 7 weeks now, essentially what we've got in place is the huge social distancing between the chairs. It's about 8 to 10 feet, depending on where you're at in the theater, between everybody. For the festival, the theater normally has 2 tops and 4 tops for seating. It's not traditional seating. We control where every seat is because it's movable tables. Almost every seat in the theater will be a 2-top only, to eliminate kind of useless seats that don't need to be around, but also to kind of concentrate the space a little more and spread everybody further apart. The rest of the stuff we're already doing and have been doing for 7 weeks, which is we are under full mask mandate. We don't care what the city said or the county said. You can't get in the theater without a mask on. They're temperature checking all the employees when they get to this theater, and they are temperature checking every single customer before they'll let them inside the door. Menus are on QR code. The festival balloting system will be through a QR code. No server will approach you to take an order if you're not wearing a mask. They won't deliver your food to you if you're not wearing a mask. They're spraying down all the fabric in the theater, and then they're fogging the theater every single night with some kind of industrial grade theater that makes the whole place smell like lemons. So, which is kind of interesting. And they're wiping down everything under the sun. So the best I can tell you is that we've been open 7 weeks. Nobody on staff has gotten COVID. And actually, I got a test back for it today. I'm negative because there was a scare where a friend of mine had it and I might have been near him and freaked out when I got a COVID test. And as far as we know, no customer has tested positive or at least tested positive and been linked backwards to us. So, I mean, we're not doing gangbusters as the theater is open, but we are doing 2 to 4 screenings a day. I would guess for a grand total averaging per screening, maybe 35 to 40 people on total average. So the festival obviously be a larger concentration of people in the same place at the same time. But as I mentioned before, it's about 80% badge holders, which is only about 60 people. And so it will be the same kind of 60 people together for 14 days, give or take. So that's kind of what we're doing. We don't, I mean, basically if they're throwing a dart. If you got a new idea for something to do, we'll totally implement it at this point.
And Tony, I want to go to and ask you, we're talking, going in the future here. Is this a bump in the road from a film festival standpoint, or do you think this is, 10, 15 years, people are going to look back and say, this is when the film festival, model changed forever? Or do you think, we get through this year and hopefully there's vaccines and treatments and all that? Are we going to have a conversation this time next year where we're all back to completely normal? Or do you think the film festival circuit will change forever here out of this?
Well, it's changed a lot in the 15 years since I founded the festival. So I definitely think it's going to continue to evolve and change. And I think this is just another aspect of change that's going to force all festivals to implement new policies, new procedures. We might see, a dip in everything for a few years, just like the economy and most businesses are going to see a dip. I think we're going to see a decline in the number of films that are made and submitted, in the appetite for filmmakers to travel to festivals, in people wanting to go out and go to festivals. And like I believe, I think it was Nina talked about a little bit earlier, festivals, it's hard to make a festival last, 5 years, let alone 10, 15. So you'll continue to see festivals sort of drop off. And if anything, it could be good for the festival world, because if you go to Film Freeway or, it used to be Without a Box or whatever, how many festivals are out there? Thousands and thousands. And anybody with an internet connection can literally start a festival on Film Freeway and screen them in their backyard if they want. And they call it a film festival. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Maybe that's the evolution. We do backyard film festivals from now on. I don't know. But I think it will be a weeding out of, a lot of these festivals that just, can't manage, or people are just, it's too much work and want to give up or whatever it might be. But yeah, there's going to be change. What that is, I don't know. If I did, I'd be playing the stock market right now. So,
Tim, you're off mute. Do you have something you want to add? Well, now you just muted yourself.
Yeah, I think Tony makes a really good point. I think the biggest concerns I have right now is not pulling off this year's festival. It's actually next year's. What kind of content is out there? Who's willing to come back out there in the world and see the movies again? But I don't think, no matter how much we go into hybrid mode or whatnot, I mean, to me, the cinema is the place where movies are best seen. And I'm sure that probably most of you guys would agree with that, or you wouldn't have started film festivals or work for them. And I think that, filmmakers want their movies to still be played on the big screen. There's something about going in the theater and there's no distractions. I don't think I'm thinking, it's kind of boring part. I can go to the beer, or I can go run to the bathroom. I can go check my text messages for whatever's going on. So I don't see a world where film festivals across the board die, even in their current state. What I do think is that you will see a little bit more of that technological part of it coming through. But I mean, a lot of festivals have been implementing huge technological advances in the last few years anyway. I mean, I guess I'm really interested to not go to TIFF this year and not get a cold. So if I get a cold every year, I go to TIFF anyway. And sit at home and watch, I guess, 50 movies on, I'm assuming they're going to use Sananda because they've always used it before, but we'll see who they use. They haven't said anything yet. But.
So I'm going to put, I'll put Nina on the spot first, but then this is going to kind of be open to anybody. You know, we've actually had a couple of questions come in here, and I had a couple of questions financially. You know, all of this is great, and it's all about the films, and we all agree that those are the most important things, but nobody's going to do this if they're losing money. And so, Nina, how, if you don't have the same amount of eyeballs or the same amount of presence, how do you convince people to, you know, sponsorship and those type of things, that it's a good value for their dollar?
I want to follow up with what Tim was saying before answering that question. Good. And just a little bit about content, which is going to change. And I think there's going to be, you know, there's going to be a little bit of a lag before we see the post-COVID films and how people are coming out of that, you know, out of this period and you know, and making more films. And that's going to impact, you know, the whole business. Also, when will filmmakers be willing to travel to festivals? Because with distancing the way it is, do you want to go to, you know, like Enzian with, you know, 200 seats where there can only be, you know, less than 100 people? That's, you know, does a filmmaker want to go to the, you know, travel for that? So again, that sort of feeds into the financial question. Mm-hmm. But I think we have to look at new revenue streams. And, you know, one of the things that we've done to survive, having started as just a film festival that happened once a year, is started to create new revenue streams. And, you know, with year-round programming, we don't have a venue, you know, we're not a venue, a festival with a venue. So we partner with, you know, with organizations, and have done, you know, and have started other programs. We provide fiscal sponsorship for social issue, mainly documentaries. And that's, you know, that's provided a new revenue stream. But sponsorship is going to change because marketing dollars for every industry is changing. So how do you create, you know, how do you find a value added? And I think the hybrid is going to help with that, because it will expose audiences, it will expose sponsors to new audiences. And I think, you know, I think we just have to play with it and see, you know, and it's going to be trial and error for a while.
Anybody else want to take on the financial question? Come on.
I think the big thing is you just cut stuff, you know. It's like, oh, we used to have this big party every year. Now it's a small party, or it's not a party at all. You know, or, you know, let's say if you were running, well, you Sunscreen, for example, you're running 4 screens on a Saturday and Sunday. Now you're running 2 screens on a Saturday and Sunday. You don't accept as many films, so you're not paying as much in, you know, venue rental fees. You just like your own business or your own personal finances, you decide what needs to be cut and what needs to be kept, and that's what you do.
And do you have to be careful that some of those things you're cutting aren't the reason that you attract people to begin with, and then if you start cutting those, then you're going to attract less and less?
Yeah, you know, again, I'll use Sunscreen as an example. One of the big things people like to come to are the workshops. You know, typically it's a dozen workshops over a 4-day festival, and those are all highly attended. And, you know, we bring in high-level guests that people want to see. And so a big thing is, while we may not be moving online with the films themselves, the workshops are a very easy thing to move online, and the educational programming and that kind of stuff. And so those kind of things, you know, speaking of doing like the hybrid type events, are things that you can do. And everybody likes a good party, so maybe we don't have as many people showing up at the parties, unfortunately, but you know, you make do.
Anyone else want to chime in on the finance?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I'll say
Go ahead,
one of the
Tim.
things. I'll just say really quickly. I mean, one of the big decisions we had about pulling out of the 2 screens at Regal this year was that when Regal was originally talking about reopening, they were talking about opening at 30% capacity. So had they opened at all, or if they even managed to get open before we run this festival, we would have been looking at one of our Regal screens that would have only sat about 40 people. And at the end of the day, it's financially stupid, I think, to pay for a venue that you couldn't even possibly come in the ballpark of breaking even to use. Look, losing money this year is going to be like the national motto of like every festival, like, hi, 2020, we lost money. But mitigating the risk of how much you lose is a big element. So basically between that and the ability that we knew we could completely control our venue socially was the 2 major deciding factors in pulling out of 2 screens. Now, the hope is obviously next year we're back on 3. But yeah, in terms of cutting costs, like I'm probably one of the first people at the group meetings that are like, so how much is the marketing for buying this ad in this magazine? Is that really going to generate anywhere near that kind of money back? Mm-hmm. Because if it's not, then unless this is like hitting a mark we've got to hit for somebody else's goal, let's not do that.
Anybody else have anything to add there before we jump over to audience questions? Okay, Jay, I'm going to hit you with this, but then anybody else can chime in. It's because you mentioned the international thing. What impact has COVID-19 had on international filmmaker participants in Florida festivals? So I want to ask you hypothetically, Jay, you had mentioned the international audience. Do you think that's going to impact your future international participation?
Yeah, I was just going to pick up my crystal ball that I'm holding below the desk, but because it's really, there's so many ifs, and it's almost like it feels like a day-to-day thing right now. But one of our major sponsors for the last 20 years has been American Airlines. That's how we bring so many guests here, because they've been such a generous and long-term partner with us. Now, obviously, they're going through a huge crisis. So, they're of course, we're in conversation with them, and they would love to continue, but I mean, the reality is like, how can you sponsor someone if you've laid off 70% of your workforce, or we might just not be able to invite people the way that we used to, for that reason. And I think, like one of the things that I'm looking at doing is that, even though, we have American Airlines as this great sponsor, we still have expenses when we're bringing a guest in, like hotel rooms and meals and things like that. I mean, I think, what we might do to support filmmakers more is just, increase our rental fees rather than like what the monies that we pay to them, rather than fly them in. I mean, it's a huge loss in terms of the personality of the festival, but that's going to be the reality. I mean, ultimately, I think, our public audience really appreciates the art. They love to talk to the artists as well. But if we can find other ways to do that, even with live Skype, if we are in the theater in next March, or continue with the virtual Facebook Live conversations that we've been having, then that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to handle that.
Another question, anybody, Nina, go ahead.
Just really quickly, something that we've done for a long time, because we're a small and low budget film festival, and we have a lot of international films and don't usually have the capacity to bring them in, don't have an airline sponsor or anything like that. But what we've done for several years now is Skyped in an international filmmaker, or even better, is WhatsApped them in or FaceTimed them in, and then put a microphone to the phone. And the audiences really get off on that because it's something they haven't seen, and it's just kind of, it starts out being funny, and then we've had some really dynamic conversations. So again, thinking outside of the box with international filmmakers is going to be something we're going to need to do, because again, from the filmmaker's point of view, coming to smaller capacities is also an issue for them.
And Nina, let's stick with you on the next question because I think the question specifically says for film festivals that have already done virtual screenings, how's this been received? What's your average film festival attendance? Unless I'm missing any, nobody's actually done that from the film festival standpoint quite yet. Nina, you've done it a few as you're leading up to it. So have you been pleased with the attendance?
It's growing. I mean, you know, the interesting thing is a lot more of our attendance is not local. What we're doing, we have not been hosting the screenings per se. We've been directing people to distributors' sites or filmmakers' sites or Vimeo, wherever the film is, and using the protection for the film that the filmmaker or the distributor has, and having a conversation that we're doing, like the Q&As or conversations or panels about it. And it's the audience is growing, and we're doing it partly because our audience isn't used to doing it this way, and we're not used to doing these virtually either. So we're practicing, and our audience is coming along, and hopefully by mid-September, when the festival starts, word of mouth will help generate more audience, not just from Florida, but from some of the films. One thing we haven't talked about is geofencing. And so again, that's a conversation we have to have with every film and filmmaker. But some of the films that we've already accepted are like, yeah, show it worldwide. But some of them are like only Florida. So, so developing audiences audiences are a whole new thing.
Tim, you shook your head there. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to jump in on geo-blocking / geofencing,
Please.
because anybody who goes virtual is going to have to answer this question. So for the people that are watching this that don't know what it is, because it is new, it is the ability for your film to be accessed essentially by a computer that is outside of a general vicinity. You pick the vicinity. So for example, the Florida Film Festival is going to be geofenced only to the state of Florida. We decided ahead of time that we didn't want to deal. One of the things that someone had asked in the messages was about premiere status. And I don't know if any of the festivals on here have signed the Film Festival Alliance pledge to ignore premiere status for 2020 and 2021. We signed it pretty early on, but part of that is also to ignore the geofencing if possible. But since we don't know what other festivals would agree or wouldn't agree to, say, if we let the movie play in Florida and if you could access it in Alabama and Mississippi and Atlanta and Georgia and South Carolina, just say that Southeast. For all I know, the Atlanta Film Festival might have said, you know what, we're not going to play your movie now because somebody in Atlanta could have watched it on the internet at the Florida Film Festival 6 months ago. So we decided we were going to take everybody else out of the equation but the state of Florida, and that's the way we're kind of protecting the film's ability to be accessed. And we had the same thing Nina did too, which is that we've had a lot of filmmakers who's contacted us like, oh, my family's so excited, they live in Texas, they're finally getting to see my movie. And I'm like, no, they're not. You're gonna have to get a VPN or something and like hack your way around geofencing. But the short version of it is that this is a big deal, and it's being driven primarily by sales agents who are trying to protect the film's ability to be moved later for, to profit. And it's also one of the reasons why I'm sure that everybody was very excited when South by Southwest said they announced they were going to put their whole festival on Amazon Prime, and it was going to be free to 300 million Amazon Prime customers. And they got 10 movies, 9 of which I believe were international features. And that was pretty much the whole festival. And the reason why is because anyone in the entire world could watch the movie, and therefore it no longer had any value to be sold. Now that's a great deal if you have a micro indie that you shot in like your basement. Hell, I would have taken that deal in a heartbeat. But like if your movie stars Brie Larson and you spent $20 million on it, you're not giving it to Amazon to run for 300 million people for 6 days.
Right.
So it's just like, it's something that we as programmers are going to have to, it's a hard, weird conversation to have with the filmmakers, because it is almost across the board. The first question I was asked by everybody, which was, is it going to be geo-block and is it going to be behind a paywall? And the paywall is the ability, you know, to buy a ticket and see the movie, as opposed to what South by tried to do with Prime, which was like, hey, if you happen to have Prime because once you needed Crest really bad, and you paid $199 to have it shipped next day, then everyone on the world could watch it. And so it's a big, problematic mess.
Yeah, it's a really critical issue. And every filmmaker has to deal with it, and every festival that's going virtual in any way is going to have to deal with it.
I wanted to ask, and I don't remember who brought it up earlier about online ballots and online voting for judges. Whoever that was, can you elaborate a little bit more on the process and how you're going to do that?
Well, we're doing it through Eventives because their site's intuitive. So if they're watching it virtually, when you complete the movie, if it's balloted, it's going to open up a window saying, would you like to vote for this film for the audience award? And then we set it as a scale of 1 to 5, weighted average. You can set your averages. But for the films that are going to be inside the theater that we didn't want to make a paper ballot for, we actually built a hidden version of the festival for the films that are not going to be available online, but will only be in the theater, as well as the films that were online that are also going to be in the theater. That sounds really confusing, but everything that's going to be in the theater is actually going to use their app called Eventive Ballot. And then when the movie plays in the theater, you can, after it's over, you can open the ballot or open the app, and there's a QR code you scan one time to set you up. And then you open it and you just push the button 1 through 5 on whatever whatever you're ranking, and then we get a collated report that tells us the thing. Now we're doing that as part of Eventive, but you don't have, there's lots of other companies that do it. And the one that was recommended to me by a few other festivals is called Sildo, I think SILDO. It's also on the Google, the App Store and the Android store. And it's the same thing. You can build your festival's ballots inside of that, and then your customers come, they download the app, they scan a QR code, that's your festival, and then they can vote that way. But these people have been doing it for years, and there's all kinds of other things, because I went to Love Your Shorts Film Festival in Sanford like 7 or 8 years ago, and they handed everybody at the door. Now, you wouldn't want to do that now because we're all going to kill each other, apparently. But they handed everybody like a little, like mini-looking cell phone thing, and you just push like A, B, C, D or something on it to vote for the movie live in the theater. So there's a lot of technology out there to do it. It's probably the easiest thing I've had to deal with, was to port the balloting digitally. I mean, it took me 1 day of my life, and it took about 6 hours to build the infrastructure inside the system to do it. And it would have taken way less time had I realized that I could do it that way the first time I loaded everything onto Eventive.
Is anybody doing, when you talk about the hybrid, is anybody doing a live event that they're also going to live stream? Like a welcome party or VIP, everybody shake. Go ahead, Ashley. Yep, tell me what the plan is.
So we are doing an opening ceremony and the closing ceremony with awards. So we're doing a live stream of both, and then possibly some panels. We're still trying to work out how the panels are going to go, whether we just post it or if it will be live streamed. And currently we're trying to figure out how interactive those awards and opening ceremonies will be, whether we just have it live where you watch where it's like one person to everyone, or are there going to be interactive features where they can like ask questions or do anything like that.
And technically speaking, what are you using to do that stream?
We are doing Vimeo.
Okay.
So Vimeo has a live stream component on their channel where you can embed it in your website, or specifically on the channel we're using for virtual.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Because I think we have addressed all of the questions that I had. Anybody have any? Greg, go right ahead.
Well, we are, as I said before, we're planning to do the festival like always. But I'm not naive enough to think that that's going to happen. But we are planning, and our opening event is at Hard Rock, and they seat 7,500. We scale it down to 2,500 normally for opening night. So we're going to reduce that to about 850. And then still have plenty of room for the party. So we're still thinking we can do opening night, and our closing night is at the IMAX. And instead of doing 2 shows, we'll probably do 4 to accommodate about 500 people. It seats 300. So if we scale it down so it's only about 75 to 100 per show, then we think we'll be okay there. So if we can do those 2 live events and then throw a coin up in the air to figure out if we can do any more, but then do everything else either virtually in the drive-ins or the boat-in, and do it that way. We do have those 2 theaters. Our main house seats of our year-round theaters, Savor Cinema, we can seat about 250. So we're thinking if we cut that down to 95 people or so, and then our other little theater, Cinema Paradiso Hollywood, only seats 82, so we'd probably cut that down to 35, and still be able to have screenings during the day. I'm glad that Tim's able to do screenings. Orlando's not quite the hotbed that South Florida is. It's gonzo down there, and I'm not really sure when we'll reopen so that we could do that as well, but we'll wait for it to be safe. We've done all of the things. We've got the infrared at the door and the sanitizing station, the plexi shields everywhere, and the electrostatics, the electrostatic sprayers, and the touchless sanitizer and soap dispensers. But it all comes down to people being comfortable. You can put all of that stuff out there. If they're not comfortable, I don't want my staff to be uncomfortable. I certainly don't want them to get sick. And I just feel terrible if something like that happens. So we're planning on it being live, but realistically, I think we'll be at least 75% virtual.
Anybody else have anything they want to add? All right, so here is what I would like to say. Everybody on this screen, minus Gerardo, of course, who we love, has some type of event going on this fall from August to the end of the year, except for Michelle. Michelle will be next spring for the Student Showcase of Films. So I would ask everybody in the audience, in one way, shape, or form, this is the grassroots of the film industry in Florida. It's important to support all of these organizations in one way or another, whether it's in person, virtually. You know, if nothing else, follow them on social media and give them some extra eyeballs. You never know where that's going to help with a sponsorship, with impressions. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank all of you for joining us, especially our great panelists. I know I learned a lot tonight. It was really valuable for me, so hopefully everybody else got a lot out of it. And again, I want to sincerely thank all of our Film Florida members. Thanks to Gerardo Lopez for providing technical support for yet another one of our town halls. As I mentioned, we're a volunteer-driven organization that's funded entirely by our members, including all of you that are on screen tonight. And without the ongoing support from all of those members, we don't exist. It's not an easy time for people to join or renew memberships, but a lot of our members have continued to renew their memberships and during this difficult time, and so we're greatly appreciative of that. If you're not a member of Film Florida, if it's not now, when the time is right, we hope you'll consider joining the organization. You can go to filmflorida.org to learn all about that. Annual student memberships are just $25. Individual memberships are $75, and corporate memberships start at $500. Please visit all of our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, check out our podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Stitcher, and the iHeartRadio app. Please stay safe and remember to wear a mask, wash your hands or use hand sanitizer regularly, maintain social distancing, and if you're not feeling well, please stay home. Thanks everybody for joining us. Have a good night.